finished another video. You have to go back and check it out if you're trying to figure out how to get your inserts out of the arrows. Used a wood burner and this little thing that I put together. In the process of doing that, my original experimenting, I used a steel screw, and it turns out that it took longer for the wood burner to heat that up to get the insert out. So then I had this steel screw with the head cut off of it. And just out of curiosity, I was just sitting messing around and realized this would screw into the back of your insert. So I stuck this on a scale. This was an 1 3/4 steel machine screw. 832 is the thread on it. And by cutting off that head, it put it just a touch over 50 grains. So I actually cut a few of these and then just hit them with a sander, on a sander for just seconds or whatever, in order to where I could get them all to weigh almost identically 50 grains. Well, then I just take a practice tip, I screw it into the insert all the way in, and then I thread my little cut screw into the back side of that, and I'm getting 2 or 3 full spins, which means that it's actually locked in there really well. And before I made this video, I actually did quite a few of these on some different weight arrows, 300 and 350 grain arrows, and did some testing with those along with 100 and 125 grain practice tips. And all I did was I screwed this in there, the practice tip, put a little bit of super glue on the back side, on the threads of this, and then screw it in as far as I can get it, and then take the practice tip out right away and stand this up and just let them dry. And I wasn't really sure how it was going to work, if there would be any off as far as this could be crooked or not, but I believe that those 2 or 3 threads are all it takes for it to get straight set in there. Well, I've done it on 8 or 10 arrows now and taken them out, and they all still group really, really well. Well, what does this mean? Well, for one thing, you get 8 of these for 88 cents at Walmart. Like I said, 832, 1 3/4 long. So you're getting 8 50 grain inserts for less than $1. You go home, cut the heads off, weigh them, sand them down just a little bit, get them all pretty identical. You've got a little bit of time, and everybody's got time now that they're all quarantined now, or whatever is happening, but then you have got these 50 grain inserts. What does that mean? Well, it changes your FOC pretty drastically. I've got a whole chart here that I made, and I'm going to try to figure out, I don't know how to make charts to put on the screen, but I'll try to figure it out. But what I did was I took these arrows, they're just cheap Walmart arrows, 300 grain and 350 grain, and in order to figure my FOC, I put my practice tips in, which I feel like is something that I haven't seen a lot of videos on, but something to think about, I assume, would be this practice tip on here is probably a 1/2 inch, whereas some broadheads are 2 inches long. In the way my brain works, a 2 inch long broadhead changes the center of your arrow, which then changes where your actual FOC is. So think about that when you're figuring out FOC, if you decide to go that route. But what I did was I put in just practice tips, measured all the way from the back of the arrow all the way to the front, came up with, these were 31 inches, both of these were. So half of that's 15.5. I ended up using a pen just because it's relatively thin and it doesn't want to roll, and I just had it sit on the counter, and with say 100 grain tip in here, I would just slide it over until it balanced, and then with a silver Sharpie I would mark where that is. So then you take that number, say it's 3 inches, so you take 3 divided by 31, and that gives you a point something number, 0.08, 0.11. Well, 0.08 is 8%, 0.11 is 11%. So that's how I figured out the FOC on these arrows. Straight out of the box with 100 grain tips on them, which is what most people would be doing. You'll stick a 100 grain broadhead on a 3 or 350 grain arrow. I was getting 11% FOC on the 300, 8% FOC on the 350. There's a whole bunch of steps I went from there. I put a 125 on it. Just by doing that, you gain about 2 to 2.5 FOC on either one of these, just by putting 125 grain broadhead on. So then you're at 10.5 and 13. The 13 being on the 300 grain, which is something else interesting. I'm trying to get some answers from people on, but I haven't gotten any yet. But then I put these inserts in, and I did the same thing with the inserts and 100 grain practice tip. The 300 grain arrow went to 15.3 FOC from the original 11%, which is a pretty significant jump. The 350 grain arrow with the 50 grain insert and 100 grain tip was 11% FOC. So then I went the next step and just went ahead and went to the 125 grain practice tip. The 300 grain arrow with the 50 grain insert and 125 grain tip put me at 17% FOC, which is, from everything that I'm seeing and reading, that's a really great number, probably beyond what some people even think you need. The 350 grain with 50 grain insert and the 125 practice tip went to 13% FOC. Like I said, I don't really know what all this means. I'm going to continue to be practicing with it. I know I can, when I shoot an arrow, I shoot just a basic one, real light grain, and light practice tip. So you're ending up with 400-ish grains overall, compared to either one of these with the heavier tip and the insert. You can hear the difference on the target at 20 and 30 yards. It's a completely different popping sound. And I've got just bag targets, so I don't think it's very scientific to try to shoot them and then measure how far out they're coming, but I could do something with cardboard or something else to do some kind of testing. This is really just to spread along this super cheap insert that works well. You still group really well, and then if you try it, see how it does. I don't know that there should be any warnings on this, but I guess things could go wrong. Anytime you're messing with your own arrows or something, maybe you could get a splinter in it or something. And I've seen pictures of arrows breaking on people and stuff like that. So because of that, I'm going to say don't do this. If you're like me and want to try everything, then that's up to you. But pretty interesting stuff. Like I said, I had questions out there. Maybe somebody on here knows what the best way to go for a hunting arrow is, because like I said, I've watched some range fairy and stuff, and I agree with a lot of what he says. He actually just did a video here recently that said high FOC or high weight, and I think the answer was both. But there's got to be one or the other in this situation. Say I've got a dozen of each of these, and I can set them both up identical with point weight and end up with either 50 grains heavier or 4% higher FOC. So that's where my dilemma is at. But hopefully this works out for some of you guys. Definitely worth messing with. If you don't like it, go back to my other video, pull your inserts back out, and when you heat this thing up, that super lube will come undone also, and you can just take this thing back out, and you're out 88 cents in a little bit of time. But have fun with it anyway. See you guys.